Welcome everyone. In this video, we are going to be learning how to create a fixed navigation bar using HTML and CSS. What is a fixed navigation bar? A fixed navigation bar is a bar at the top of the web browser that will stick to the top. Even when the user scrolls down, that bar is fixed there. Up top here is our fixed navigation bar. Once we begin to scroll, you see that the fixed navigation bar sticks to the top of the screen and doesn't go away. Add a little bit of opacity on there. You can see the content scrolling behind it. That's a clean looking fixed navigation bar right there. It's also responsive, so it's going to look nice and clean on a mobile device as well. Now it's time to see how this is done using HTML and CSS. On my local box, I'm going to hop over to my www fixed navigation bar folder. In here, we're going to create an index.php file and a styles.css file, and then open both those files up. I am going to switch this to a 2-column layout, put my styles on this side, and my HTML will be right over here. First thing to do is set up our HTML template. I'm going to begin by filling in the head section. Our head section contains a title, the meta tag viewport, which is going to make it look good on mobile, and we're going to include our styles.css. Now we can focus on the body of the page. We're going to separate this out into two sections. One is going to be the header, the fixed header, and the other is going to be the content. Call that fixed navigation header. Within here, we're going to have another container, which we'll get to this in a moment. And the final div in here is going to be where we actually place the content inside of the fixed header. Here's where my login and menu buttons will be. Down here, we're going to specify this as the content. You can call this site content. We're going to put a container inside of here, and this container is what will center our content. Then we'll specify the section, which is the white container. And we have our first section. Before we style it up, let's take a look at this in the browser. Here's what we got so far. Plain old HTML right on the page. This up here will turn into our header, and below it will be our content. The way I have this page set up is I've defined my fixed header inside of this div, and then I have another div that is going to contain all the content, which is going to scroll behind that div. Let's make this stick to the top of the page. First thing I'm going to define is some styles for the body of the page. That's our body style. Pretty straightforward CSS right there. We refresh the page and we see our body styles have been applied. We have our nice light blue background. We have no padding, no margin here. Straightforward CSS on the body. Now we can focus in on our fixed navigation header. So we're going to copy the fixed navigation header class and style it up in our CSS file. What we're doing here is we're first going to define the height, and that will always be the same, 50 pixels. After that, we're just defining the position to be fixed. That means it will not move. Top 0 means how many pixels from the top do you want this to appear. We want it right at the top, so we're going to say 0. Width of 100% is always going to be the width of the browser. And background RGBA with the 0.08 opacity in there. That's going to give us that nice clean look. That way we can see the content scrolling behind it. Before I dive into the styles on the inner divs, I'm going to also style up my site content container, because that's also right out here alongside my fixed navigation header. Copy that class name into our styles.css, and the only thing we need for this is a margin top, and this has to be set to the height of our navigation bar. Back in the browser, we've refreshed our page, and now we have our fixed header with the dark background, and our content is down below. The reason we have a margin top on the site content is if we don't put this on there, then this content will load up behind the fixed header like this. I'll comment this out quick and refresh the page. So you see here, our margin top 50 is going to place our content starting right at the point where our fixed header ends. Now moving back up here inside of our fixed navigation header, we're going to style up our navbar container. So our inner div here, navbar container, gets a width of 100%. It's also going to be the same height as our outer div, fixed navigation header. We're going to specify a max width on this. That way, if the browser gets too big, it's going to stop at 800 pixels. And the margin 0 auto is going to always keep that in the center. And just so you can see what I mean, I'm going to put a border on this. We hop over to the browser here. This container maxes out at 800 pixels. Right now the browser is wider than 800 pixels, so that margin 0 auto is going to center it. See, it stays centered. And that is why we need our inner container. Now we just have one thing left to style up inside of our fixed header, and that's the options. I want my options to be on the right side of the container, so we're going to do a simple float right on that. I want the text to be white, and the font needs to be a lot bigger, 24 pixels, and I'm going to give it some padding. Pop back to the browser here, refresh it, and there we go. Our login menu has been floated to the right side with a nice padding around it. Just like up in the fixed header with the max width of 800 and the margin 0 auto, I also need to do that on the container div here for our content. Because right now it's set to 100% of the page. Copy that class over here. So we did the exact same thing we did up here. Max width of 800 pixels, and a margin of 0 auto. So now that will be centered just like our fixed navigation header. There we have it. It's going to follow our fixed navigation header. I'm going to get rid of this solid green border, and then define the section. My section is defined. It's got a background of white, margin top of 10. Let's see how that looks. Got our section defined right below our fixed header. Only thing left to do is create a bunch of content now so the site can actually scroll. I'm going to copy and paste that right in there. We'll copy the section over and over. I think 10 sections should do the trick. Now that we have enough content on our website, we can scroll down and see our fixed navigation bar working. Scroll down and we see it scrolls right behind the fixed navigation bar, and the fixed navigation bar stays at the top of the page. And that's going to wrap up this video, creating a fixed navigation bar with HTML and CSS. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later.